In this video, I'm sharing how the NFL made money as a nonprofit and how you can steal their strategies to make money for yours. If you are curious about that, make sure you keep watching because I'm also sharing 4 lessons from the NFL that you can apply to your nonprofit, even if you're new and even if you're small. I'm Tiffany with Boss on a Budget, and I teach all about nonprofits, and I'm doing a series on big corporations that you may not realize are nonprofits or used to be nonprofits and what you can learn from them about raising money. Did you know that at one point the NFL was in fact a nonprofit? Yes. Until 2015, the NFL was a 501c6 nonprofit. That means that all of the revenue they made, they did not have to pay tax on it. Let me break this down so you can understand a little bit of how this works. In 1942, the NFL, as the trade association, got their tax exempt status. They are 501c6. That is a specific type of tax exempt organization that represents trade groups, business associations that exist to promote the common interest of their members. So the NFL's mission was to promote the common interest of the 32 teams that make up the NFL. Before they gave up their status, what was happening was they were getting pressure about being a nonprofit and about giving up their status. So they decided that it wasn't worth the aggravation. They called it a distraction and they gave up their tax exempt status in 2015. And we don't have any more financial data about how much they're worth or how much they make because they are now for profit. But we can still learn from what we did know up until 2015 based on their 990 tax forms. So you may be a little bit confused about the structure and how this works. So let me break that down for you. The NFL is like a trade association. They represent the interests of the 32 teams. Each of the teams are their own separate body, their own separate legal entity. The majority of those teams are for profits, except one, but the majority of the teams are for profits. They are separate entities, but they are a part of the association. So think of the NFL, the trade association, kind of as the administrative office that represents all of those teams. They did do some other things like grants for domestic violence and research for head injuries and things like that, but the majority of their work really was to protect the interests of the 32 teams. So let's talk about how the NFL is structured and where their money comes from. And if we're going to talk about where their money comes from, we have to think about the NFL as a network, not just as the one organization that was the 501c6. So first, let's talk about the NFL as the trade association. As I said, they are made up of 32 separate teams. Those 32 teams each make money their own way through ticket sales, through concessions, through money-making ventures at the local level. So there's also money being generated at the local level, and those 32 teams are making their own money. Those teams pay membership dues, which accounted for over $80 million in 2015, and where most of their revenue as the NFL came from. Those 32 teams are also a part of a limited partnership called NFL Ventures LP. NFL Ventures LP handles all of the merchandising, so all of the clothing, the hats, the socks, anything with logos and names on it. It manages that piece and brings in the revenue from licensing out the names and logos of each of the teams. And each of those teams get an equal split of all the money that's made from merchandise sales. And that's through NFL Ventures LP. NFL Ventures LP is a for-profit. Just keep that in mind. That for-profit owns an LLC called NFL Ventures LLC. NFL Ventures LP owns an LLC, and that LLC is called NFL Enterprises. NFL Enterprises handles all of the media rights. So if networks want to broadcast games, they have to pay in order to do that. And NFL Enterprises gets the income from all of the NFL media. So NFL.com, the NFL Network, all of those things. Recently, I've heard that the NFL has sold their rights to the games, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to still talk as if NFL Enterprises has control of the media rights for the games. So this is the network of NFL, and as a collective, it brings in $3 to $4 billion a year. So if you're still listening, you know that this is a complicated structure, and none of the entities in this structure is currently a nonprofit, but there are still lessons about how to make money that you should be paying attention to. The first lesson is to diversify your funding. First of all, relying on just one source of income is risky. Within the entire network, there are multiple opportunities to make money. There are multiple opportunities to leverage the league and the league's activity activities. And that's the lesson you should take from this. So the NFL, as a trade association, their main source of income was membership dues. And that's one way to make money. But if you are a membership organization, you need to think about other ways to make money. You could do events. You could have sponsorship, partner with corporations to sponsor pieces of your event. You could put on conferences and gather money from the tickets and the sales from conferences. You can provide VIP experiences for folks. You can provide training and people pay for training. There are multiple ways you can extend beyond one source of income. And that's just an example for a membership organization. If you rely on dues, just because it feels like a sure thing, hey, we have members and those members consistently pay us money every year, every month, it could feel really stable, but just know, especially in 2026, nothing is guaranteed. So even if a source of income feels like a sure thing, make sure you're thinking and strategizing ways of making additional money. Lesson number 2, you can actually own a business. So the NFL as a network is structured in a way that there are multiple entities and some of the entities own each other. So as I explained, the NFL Ventures LP, the partnership, owns the organization that manages the media rights to the games. So the money from the LLC eventually flows back to the partnership where the 32 teams have equal shares in the money that's made. So what does this have to do with you as a nonprofit? You still need to think about ways to make money, and one of your options is to create a business structure that the nonprofit actually owns. Because here's the thing, you want to make sure that you're sustainable, right? And maybe you have an idea to make money, but it's not connected to your charitable purpose. You should know by watching my videos that if you're doing something outside of your charitable purpose, you risk losing your tax-exempt status. So in order to maintain your status, you can set up a separate business. You can create, for example, an LLC that generates money that does support the program and the operations of your nonprofit. Remember that entity, whether it's an LLC or another corporation, is a for-profit. So that entity still has to pay taxes. Just because a nonprofit owns it doesn't mean that it's absolved from paying taxes. And just also keep in mind that it's a whole separate entity. So you're now managing the nonprofit and managing the for-profit. So it does take quite a bit of effort, but this does happen. For example, there are nonprofits that own separate businesses that own property that they rent out to other people. The activity of owning property and subletting it or leasing it to other people may not be within their mission, but because they separated with the separate business, it's allowed. The third lesson you can learn from the NFL is to leverage your audience. So the NFL has a long history and a very large and dedicated audience. And the reason why they're able to get paid to broadcast games, the reason why people will pay to use team logos, to make their own products, is because of the strong following and the strong audience and history that the NFL has. In some way, you have some kind of social capital. In some way, you have something that a business wants from you. And you can leverage this as a way to get corporate sponsorship. If you have a group of people or an audience of people that a business wants to market to or a business needs access to for marketing purposes, then they would be willing to pay you. They would pay for sponsorship of an event or some kind of activity to help further their own marketing goals or to improve their standing within the community. So you have to think about what are different audiences, what are strengths, what are assets that my nonprofit has or the people who work with our nonprofit or my clients or participants have that a business wants to use or business wants access to. Here's an example to help make this plain for you. I coach a nonprofit called Home Owner Prep. They help people become first-time home buyers, particularly those who are marginalized or who've been shut out of the housing industry, especially people of color. And they put on regular events, and their events are sponsored by banks and sponsored by lenders and brokers because those people want to market to home buyers. So it's a really great partnership to have with corporations. But this can be true in different industries, in different settings. And think in particular about your audience and what about your audience is appealing to a corporation or another business that wants to market to them. And the last lesson you need to learn from this is about partnerships. So as I shared before, the 32 teams are a part of the limited partnership. It's called NFL Ventures. They all have an equal share in the money that's made. So some of the less popular teams still get an equal share of the money that's made from merchandising like jerseys and hats and things from other well-known teams. So because because they're in this partnership, they still benefit. How does this relate to you? You need to leverage partnerships, especially if you're small or new, to help grow your presence, whether that's online or whether it's in your local community. You can leverage the audience and the reach of more established organizations when you partner with them. You want to think about what value you bring to those organizations. You may have something that they need, some kind of experience or some kind of expertise that they can use for their programming, and you need to think about what value you can get from them. Expanded reach, expanded visibility, whatever that means. You can partner with people to help grow your organization. One example of this is with grants. For those who are seeking those larger grants, especially federal government grants or those six-figure grants from foundations, you can partner with more established organizations that have an established brand or may have a history with certain funders who are more likely to get an approval in those processes. You can still partner as a subcontractor to win those grants in partnership with those established organizations. So I want you to think about who you can partner with, what you can add to their program array, what you can add to the services they provide, and think about how you all can come together to win more. What's the biggest lesson you learned by listening to this video today? Drop it in the comments. And if there are other nonprofits that you want me to break down how they make money, drop that in the comments. I'll be happy to do a video on that too. And if you're struggling to raise money, I have a workbook on how to raise your first $10,000. If you need that, just drop 10K in the comments and I will send you the link to purchase. If you need help with your nonprofit, visit me at bossonabudget.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.